Today I'm very excited to have Jade Statt from StreetVet. You may have heard of her. She's one of the co-founders of StreetVet on here with us today to discuss more about her vetting life and how did StreetVets come about. Hello Jade, nice to see you.
Hi Lennon, how you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. Well, first of all, thank you very much for getting onto this little show with us, and I'm very excited to be asking a few questions.
Yeah, it was. I've not got any vets in the family or anything, and wasn't, surrounded by animals. But I just, I read some books when I was about 10 called the Animal Inn series, by Virginia Vale, and yeah, I just decided that at that point that was it. Her dad was a vet, and it was all about what they got up to, and yeah, it was written from her point of view as a daughter of a vet, and I just decided at 10, 11 years old that I wanted to do it. So yeah, once I've made my mind up on something, I'm pretty set on it. I studied at Glasgow. So I was born in Glasgow and I went to Glasgow Vet School because yeah, back at that time there wasn't as many vet practices. Sorry, I was making myself sound old now. Not that many vet practices that did it. So yeah, I got into the Scottish one. So I just stayed in Glasgow. I think the alarming thing for me, when I first went there, was like that feeling that, I think the first thing they said to me, I've always remembered this when I first started at Glasgow, was look to your left, look to your right. Every one of you has been top of your class, and now one of you is going to be bottom of this class. And when I think now, like, it's a pretty hideous thing to say, but at the time I was like, oh my word, like, so you had that feeling like, well, I did, as I think all vets are pretty good at feeling this, but like, yeah, I didn't belong there. So, it kind of put you into this kind of very competitive, not that I wanted to be the best, but I just didn't want to be bottom at the beginning. But once, you got into it and you realize, then it became more settling. But yeah, I mean, the challenges are probably not dissimilar to what they are now. Every holiday was doing EMS. You kind of gave up a lot of you to be to do that vocation. And a lot of my friends obviously were not vets, and so they were doing a lot more other things in their spare time. And you just kind of look back and think, that 5 years was pretty consumed by veterinary medicine. I went straight into practice. So I think I had a few months off trying to find a job. But then, yeah, I literally went straight into first opinion practice. It was quite a small practice. Me, my boss, and one other vet in Nuneaton, of all places. So yeah, on call, 1 in 3 rota, the usual joy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was there for a couple of years, and then I actually went traveling for a bit, and then I came back and went back into practice. So yeah. I think I was really lucky. I'm gonna be honest. Like, I remember we had a wee sort of group of us, obviously we're friends from vet school, and we would all kind of speak to each other. And at the beginning, it's daunting. You're literally gone from being in this tight-knit group on a campus where you know everybody and you're talking to everybody all the time, to being like diaspora, around the UK and not knowing anyone, and then literally going to being on call. But I had an incredibly supportive boss, and I also, the other vet that was working there, like, she's now one of my best friends. So that was 18 years ago. So she was also a really supportive person, and so I kind of had both of them. So when I did on call, if I needed them, I could call them, and so that was a nice practice. So I think the job I had after that was different. Again, it was a much bigger practice, and I think if I'd had that as my first job, it would have been a very different experience. So I've worked as a locum now quite a bit, and I've ended up getting the jobs through being a locum in practice. You then, you know, if you get on with them, you know, a lot of the jobs that I've gone for, I've ended up getting through working for them first. And I think, I don't think I would ever take a job now without working in the practice first, even if it was just for a day, because I think that you don't really get a sense of everything just from an interview. So, and I think any good practice should have no issue with you doing that, you know, coming to shadow and, you know, be involved with the practice. So I think I would ask to be involved in that way, like be able to come and spend a day at the practice, just so you can talk to people. And again, it's that, you know, talking with other people that work there. You know, if there's a good culture, you'll pick that up really well through having a chat. So I think that's important. I think understanding, I suppose, their attitude to listening to their vets and their nurses, and, you know, is it quite a dogmatic practice, or do you have quite a sense of, you know, communication where you can talk? And, you know, I guess it's getting a sense of, you know, do you have appraisals? Do you have like practice meetings where you all discuss things and get things back? Because that, to me, you know, is another good sign of, you know, a good practice. And yeah, getting an idea of how many, you know, what's the turnover of vets and nurses, if they work there for a long time, again, is a really good thing to understand. And I guess, you know, there's all these awards that exist now for practices, but one of the things that, you know, I think is key is obviously well-being, and having an understanding of what that practice, like how much they're aware of, you know, their staff and knowing what they need. So like they do it's the well-being awards, isn't it, that they do now. I mean, I 100% want to work for a practice that's won a well-being award over any other award. And obviously from a street vet point of view, I think having an awareness that vets and nurses do have a need to give back. So whether it's volunteering for street vet or volunteering for another charity, I think having volunteer days is a really good way of acknowledging that practice is really listening to its staff and what they need. I think things whereby you know, the culture is one of, this is how we do it and this is how it's going to be done, and there's no sort of open lines of communication. You know, you do see that a lot, and I don't necessarily think it's, you know, on purpose. I think people get in their ways of doing things, and that's what they're comfortable with. So, you know, when I've been a locum, obviously as a locum, your job is to go there and do your job and, you know, fit in. But there's also, you know, if as a locum, and I've been a vet for a long time, I'm not going to do something that I don't feel comfortable with. So I think that when I've worked places where there's that kind of open, like, oh, so why are you doing that? Oh, you're doing it that way. Do you find that better? Like, that's the place you want to work for, not somewhere where it's like, well, we don't do that, so don't do that. Or and also where there's I think a lack of I don't want to use the word respect, but awareness for the nurses and how much they bring to the table. And I've worked places where, you know, that they had a lot of people maybe working in roles that were not qualified, or, you know, they were being asked to, you know, move above where they were ready to be, and they felt too intimidated to say that they didn't feel comfortable. So I think that if there's that kind of ethos somewhere, that would make me concerned that maybe there's not free communication going on in that practice, where the staff would feel comfortable to say, do you know what, I'm not that happy doing that. So yeah, they're kind of warning lights, I think, for me, I suppose.
Fair enough.
Or things that I would feel that I would, you know, I'd struggle with if there was a very set way of doing things and nobody was open to discussion, and where members of staff were being asked to do things out with their comfort zone and didn't feel that they could speak up.
Did you feel that vet college prepared you well for working life?
No, I'm going to be pretty brutally honest on that.
Please
I
do.
think that, yeah, I didn't really hesitate. I think from a veterinary knowledge point of view, yeah, I think I felt, you know, and also, I think a lot of that you get from your EMS and the, you know, if you pick a good practice and they know you and they let you do things and communicate and stuff. But I think from a expectation point of view, I think I had absolutely no idea and no understanding of veterinary business at all. I know that's changed now from when I graduated. And I think that, yeah, mental health and well-being has like totally changed, which I'm delighted to say. And also, you know, I don't think I had enough awareness of business client communication. I think, again, we did do some, and the stuff with the BDS that we did, I will always remember, but I know that there's a lot more concentration on that now. So I think all the things to do with computer skills, business skills, well-being and communication are things that are now better, that I think that I probably lacked when I qualified.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because I wanted to ask you another question that is a little bit sort of related to what you just mentioned, really. As we know, the vet profession at this moment in time, there is quite a few sort of statistics that's a little bit disturbing to a certain extent to me. Like the first one is the depression rate is quite high. You know, Vet Life, the equivalent for Samaritans for vets, they always mention about how the number of calls have doubled over every year for the past few years. And secondly, the dropout rate is also quite high. You know, they did a survey 2 years ago and they found that 38% of vets would stop being vets if they could actually afford it. That's more than a third. And we are also known for our sort of, unfortunately, suicide rates as well. How we're more likely to end our life in our profession twice more likely than the medical profession and 4 times more likely than the general public. Yet, when we mention to others that, oh, I'm a vet, it's quite invariable that people go, that is so cool, that's what I always wanted to do. And so I'm trying to struggle in my head, why is it the perception of the public, it's like vets are very, very cool, and yet within the profession we know that these stats are present? What is your thought on that?
So I don't know if you know, in one of my previous hats, I was one of the directors of Vet Life. So it's a big area of interest to me. So I suffer with recurrent depressive disorder, and I've had depression quite a few times. And it was through coming out of that I started to think all the things that you're talking about. You know, why vets? Why us? You know, why is there this misconception? And that was what led me to get involved with, it was VBF at the time, and obviously they've gone through a brand change and are now known as Vet Life. So, and I guess, honestly, part of the reason at the core of me starting StreetVet as well was what got me through a lot of my issues was being around animals and my dog. And then when I met a homeless person in the street, you know, it was that recognition of how important that dog was to their mental health. But I digress. But in terms of the profession, I think that it is a really under acknowledged thing, because I guess people, they think about the puppies and the kittens and all the good stories, and they don't think about what it's like, you know, if a medical equivalent was involved with palliative care ward, for instance, you know, they get counselling, they get access to, you know, help and support, whereas we are potentially euthanizing 3-4 animals, you know, sometimes a day, and nobody really stops to think the impact that that's having on us. But also, you know, we entered this profession to save, right? We entered this profession because we love animals, yet we are faced with, you know, challenges all the time to do with what happens when we can't save them, what happens when money comes into it. And also, you know, again, I did do a lot of reading into this when I was involved with Vet Life, but, you know, part of a vet solution in your head is euthanasia. So if you're presented with a sick animal that you can't fix and you know they're suffering, one of the solutions to help that animal is to euthanize it. So there's that association that we consider euthanasia as a possible solution. So then there's that discussion that, is that why, you know, we have a more open mind to suicide? when we ourselves are stuck in what we consider a never-ending problem. And I'm not saying that's a correct association, but in that moment, if you're used to that as a possible solution, that might be why. And yeah, I think, I mean, a lot of work has been done and is being done by like My Matters Initiative and Vet Life and all these changes to try and bring more awareness to the forefront. But I think the concept of the public being aware is quite an interesting one. And it would be a very interesting sort of documentary to do. You know, the real sort of notion behind veterinary medicine and the effect that it has. But I guess I don't know whether it would be welcomed by the profession or not. But I do think it's a really important one.
I totally agree with you. It's especially the bit on the euthanasia, whereby we actually sometimes convince owners or pet guardians to say that that is the right option to do, and we have actually rationalized it. And that is, I can't think of any other profession that does that really, to rationalize euthanasia or even discuss euthanasia, much less perform euthanasia.
Yeah, I think it's going back to vet schools really, and starting at that area, because they're the vets of tomorrow. They're the people that are going to be sort of molding the profession. So I think that, and I think that is happening. You know, I think there's way more awareness and support than there was when I graduated. But I think that, you know, there's a lot of talk about how do we select for vet students? You know, who are we selecting for resilience and people that are able to deal with this? Because I think ultimately it used to be, you know, you select for people with all the A's and, you know, the really overachievers, but a lot of the time they maybe aren't people that are, you know, have got other I guess qualities that are needed. And I think it's just balancing it, you know, like we don't need to take people that have spent from the age of 12, like I did, you know, seeing kennels and all the things that I did in my holidays, get into vet school. Actually, I'd be better off going out and doing all these other things that maybe would have made me a more sort of rounded person. But I think that it's a change in you know, being the type of person that vets are, which is very perfection led. And I do think again that is changing, but I think that we're just not really that great at asking for help or feeling that that we can acknowledge that we've made a mistake. And I think if that culture can be removed or lessened, then that will become easier. But I think, you know, slowly, I think that the changes, but it's got to come from where it all starts, which I think is at vet school. I don't know. I guess maybe there won't be a situation where people qualify to be generalists anymore, and maybe it will be, you know, very specific that you will actually start, you know, specializing earlier on in your career, like at vet school maybe. But you know, obviously there's the whole telemedicine discussion and remote ways of working, and I think that life is going to go, well, aside from COVID, but probably much more that people want more convenience and actually have a lot more done at their home, or you know, maybe much more mobile vetting, rather than going into practices. But yeah, I mean, the expectations on vets has massively changed as a result of all these programs, and as a result that, you know, insurance now, you know, I remember when I insured my Labrador, like I maxed out at $4,000, and that was a lot of money. Whereas now you insure your pet, if you don't have 12 grand, just not enough. So, you know, I think that people want to do more, people expect more, and I think as a result there are pressures on vets more. But I think there's also this whole argument that people feel that maybe they can't do things that, you know, that they should be referring automatically, and that's leading to, I guess, dissatisfaction probably with new graduates, because they're feeling like they are not doing things, and they're being, you know, they have to refer as well because more and more people are insured. So I mean, I think that it would be nice if people were, you know, still doing general practitioner work, but I don't know if it will stay like that if the expectations from the public aren't getting higher and higher, and the money that they're willing to spend and the insurance is getting higher to refer.
Well, I agree with you as well. And it's interesting you speak about money. So the second sort of fallacy, or illusion, I call it, that sometimes we see is that they'll go, wow, you're a vet, you must be minted.
Well, I think we all know it's not true. It's a vocation and something you do because you love your job and not because you're expecting to make lots of money. But yeah, it's just that general misnomer, isn't it? They're relating prices that they pay, or for, and thinking that then relates back to the person in practice. But yeah, I think as well, we always talk about it, but if people understood what their costs were for their own healthcare, then maybe they would be more understanding of what that value equates to. And like lots of people have done like really interesting like infographics on a cruciate for a person in the NHS costs X, and then and I think that's really the only way that you can get through to people on that level, is to help them understand what the costs are. But it is tricky because they don't associate themselves paying for their own healthcare. So even though having a pet is different, it's that same argument. So I think that's the only, I find that's the only way to communicate that personally. And I know that people have done some work on that, because there's been quite a lot of vet bashing in the newspapers of late. And so, I know people are responding to that by, making comparisons. I love being a vet. So I would never say that I would not go back and do the same job again. So I'm maybe, if you said like a third of people say that they wouldn't, then I'm not in that camp. But I think that I would be concerned that they understood that it's not what they think it's going to be, and that they prepare themselves and are aware. First of all, obviously financial remuneration is not maybe what the perception is, but also that it's not about, it's emotionally draining, and it is, you give a lot of yourself to it because it's vocational. You've got to love what you do. I think, but also I think there are ways to prepare yourself a bit better now to get a better understanding of what being a vet means. Because they're seeing a lot, there's more programs, maybe they glorify it a bit more than you'd like, but there are these weekends you can do that you can actually, what does it mean to be a vet, and actually you can get a bit more of a taster of it. But I mean, if my relative told me they wanted to be a vet, I mean, it's the best thing I've ever done personally. But there's been times that it has taken too much from me. But I think that it's a learning curve, and I would want to make sure that they were aware of that and had support in place. And that if I could go back to vet school again, to be honest, I think I would tell my younger self to work less hard, because and enjoy it more, because it doesn't change the outcome. I mean, I graduated with honours, and I remember my first boss telling me that if he had somebody with honours apply for a job, he would put them in the no pile immediately. And I remember being like, oh great. So it didn't benefit me. It didn't change the vet I've become. So I think I would definitely take my pedal off the gas and take it a bit steadier, rather than work to oblivion, and actually enjoy the experience, because vet school was amazing. Met some amazing people. So
obviously, you saw something special. Even past your honors, he decided to hire you, so that's good. I can totally appreciate. I failed 3 times in my vet career: first year, third year, and final year. So I can totally appreciate, and we all become vets anyway. So I can And that wasn't because I was partying. I was really, really trying my best, but there we go.
I've always wanted to volunteer and give back using my vet degree. And I did look into doing it in other capacities, like abroad and stuff. But I felt very strongly that I wanted to do something here. And I didn't find it very easy to do. You know, I phoned around various, you know, charities and offered my services for free. And I think it's just, you know, red tape and all these things that made it more difficult.
Yes.
So it was just in the back of my mind, and I wanted to do something. And then, as I sort of mentioned, I met this guy, and you know, I always have a chat. And his dog had a skin problem, and I just was like, "Well, what are you going to do? Like, how does this work?" And he was sort of explaining it to me. And yeah, my own dog had recently been diagnosed with cancer, and you know, I had all the veterinary world at my feet, and I still felt rubbish and helpless. Whereas this guy, you know, I just started thinking, what would I do if that was my dog, like in his situation? And as I alluded to before, you know, my dog helped me through some horrendous times in my life, and dogs are amazing for that, as we know. And you know, it was just very obvious how much of a crutch this dog was to this guy in his life. And I just was like, right, surely I can do something about this. Like, if I had what I needed in my bag, I could have sorted that dog. It was a skin problem, done. So yeah, I walked away and sort of ruminated on it, as I do. And then I heard about a guy called Joshua Coombs, and he runs a movement called Do Something for Nothing. And he's a hairdresser by trade, and he would go out and cut homeless people's hair. So he was using his skill to give back, and the movement was calling for other people to do the same. So I emailed him, and I just said, I want to do what you do. And we met, we had a coffee, and I obviously realised that it was going to be more tricky to do what I wanted to do, in terms of, you know, dotting the I's and crossing the T's with all the various regulatory bodies to make sure I was doing everything I should be doing. But yeah, so that was like summer 2016, and by Christmas I was out in the street. Josh was doing the hair, and I was looking at the dogs. And it was at that kind of point that I guess StreetVet kind of snowballed, because there was an awareness of the massive need for it, but also I was very confident that other people in the profession would want to do it. And obviously I then met Sam, who was doing it, and then we joined to do it together. But there was a lot of sort of, not negativity, but thought that me and Sam were a bit mental, that, you know, why would vets and nurses want to get back from work and then go out and do more, because everyone's tired, and, you know, the profession is long hours and everything. But we just knew, because it's different. Doing some StreetVet's just different. It's different because it's helping a human and their pet in a completely different way from what you do every day. It's the core of why most people did this profession in the first place. There's no money to worry about. You don't have to worry about insurance. You don't have to worry about time. You're literally just giving back in the sort of rawest way that you can. And I think if I'm honest, genuinely honest, I think the profession needed it. And I think that's why it has had the support, the tremendous support that it's had, is because I think people wanted to do something and they just didn't realise it. And then now they've been given this platform that they can do it, you know, without any risk to their professional, you know, credibility. You know, it's all been done and made sure that it's sorted for them. So, I mean, at the beginning, it was very much just persistent and perseverance on my front. I just think, you know, if I believe in something, I'm a bit like a dog with a bone. I don't give up easy. So, you know, I asked for support from various people, but we've had support from drug companies right from the start, and they've continued to support us. So, you know, we do get quite a bit of free drugs that, as I say, we people got on board at the start, and I'm just so grateful, because without them we wouldn't be where we are. And the same with practices. We've had practices get behind us. You know, all the volunteers are working for people. So they go back and they tell their bosses, and some of them will be like, okay, well, we'll give you a discount, or we'll give you, you know, 1 pro bono procedure a month, or, you know, Goddard's was the first practice to really get behind StreetVet, and they gave us 10 free practices a month, 10 pro bono cases a month for a year, which was game changing for us, to be honest. We also won a competition for £100,000 quite early on, which was publicly voted on, and again that was a massive achievement, and it really changed the, you know, paved the way, I guess, for us. But the veterinary profession's just absolutely blown out of the water for us. You know, the actual vets and nurses that want to get involved, the pet industry has been supportive, and the veterinary, you know, industry in general, from the practices to the drug companies. So I think that yeah, Sam and I talk about it, but, you know, to us, this is, you know, it's the profession, StreetVet. You know, it's the profession's way to give back, and I think, you know, if as a byproduct it improves the public's perception of the profession, then that is also a good thing.
Absolutely. I presume that you are talking about working after the hours. So usually all the street vets, they all have full-time employment and they volunteer their time. So nobody is really a full-time street vet, so to speak.
So the people, so the army of volunteers that we have do it, you know, it's in an evening. So it's usually, I mean, everything's different at the moment because of COVID, but normally alongside a soup kitchen. So it'll be like 8 to 9 at night, or it will be on the weekend. In terms of employed staff, we became a charity in January 2019. So I became employed by StreetVet in February 2019 full-time, because at that point Sam and I had conversations, and, you know, it was too big to do while working in practice at the same time. I was the first employed person for StreetVet, but I would say I didn't really, and I still don't do anywhere near amount of actual street vetting that I'd like, because I'm mostly doing behind the scenes and all that kind of stuff. But and then we employed an operations manager, and then we've employed a general manager. So there's now 3 members of staff at StreetVet.
And the rest are all purely volunteer basis, and the sort of drugs are all donation. And
a lot of the drugs are donation, but we still have a drugs bill. So every StreetVet team is registered as a separate branch practice with the RCBS, and we all have our own VMD inspections and our own NVS account. So yeah, I mean, we do a drug order regularly where we are paying for it, but we do get a good proportion. I just wanted to continue, you know, and to, I mean, obviously, I'd love for it not to be needed, but sadly, I don't think in the current climate, I think it's only going to get sadly worse. So I think that my dream is that, you know, we've started something that is going to continue long past me, long past Sam, and be something that the profession can be proud of, and we can continue to, you know, mobilize our profession to help people that really need it. And the other thing that we've literally just about to launch is our StreetVet accredited hostel scheme. So we're supporting hostels to start accepting more and more pets, because only 10% of hostels accept pets, and that's why a lot of our clients are, you know, on the street and can't get into a hostel accommodation. So yeah, I mean, I'd love every single hostel in the UK to accept pets and be StreetVet accredited, but, you know, world domination is yet to come. So we're just launching our first one this month. So I would like to see a situation where, you know, our owners are not discriminated against because they've got a pet. Obviously, in non-COVID times, we got loads of practices doing amazing fundraisers for us within their practice, and that's been, you know, a real source of you know, funding for us, has been veterinary practices who have kind of named us as their charity, and then raised raised funds for us that way. Yeah, and then obviously vets and nurses getting involved by joining the team. We are now, so as well as actually being, you know, a physical presence on the street, we are now looking for people who want to get involved maybe in a slightly different way, so more with like practice management skills or media skills. So, you know, it's now opening up to not just vets and nurses to help support us.
Yeah.
And then the public obviously support through fundraising, and we have an Amazon wish list for every single location, so people can buy, you know, decide they want to buy a lead or whatever and actually have an entity. But the other way that we ask the public is to actually advocate for these owners. So if you do walk past somebody who's homeless and they have a pet, stop and talk to them, and, you know, try and strike up a commonality, I guess, use that dog as a conduit to conversation. And, you know, we're not an enforcement organisation, we're an engagement one. So if you say to that owner, have you heard of StreetVet? Do you think you'd want a vet check? Or, you know, then we get so many members of the public now notifying us, and we've got a notification section on the website, and they can actually help to put us in touch with owners that might want our help.
Jade, what a pleasure. Thank you very, very much for your time. And
No worries.
it has been extremely enlightening. And thank you very much. And I look forward to, you know, working with you again.